welcome to Worth the War. My name is Kimmy. The purpose of Worth the War is preparing people for healthy love and relationship, rethinking love, and helping people to avoid abuse. If you think we can do a better job with love and relationship than we're doing in the modern culture, you have found the exact right channel. We hope you'll join us by subscribing, press the notification bell. Just join our community as we find a new approach to love to help spare hearts. Today we are taking a huge left turn, and because you can tell I'm not even in my normal place. I'm using a cell phone to record this, but it's so important that we get this message out. We just finished a season of The Bachelor, and I'm not gonna lie, it is the first time I've ever watched The Bachelor. I had a child that wanted to watch it. I thought, good idea to watch it. It's certainly about love and relationship. Let's see what's going on. And there was so much there that I think that we should step back and talk about. It almost as a sense of advice for this last Bachelor. His name was Matt James. He was darling. Seemed like a really neat guy, really looking for the good, trying to be respectful. I was really excited for the journey. I thought this will be interesting. But there was so much sadness in the last 2 episodes, and not just for the experience we were watching, but because of the message that it sent. So let's talk about this. Let's step back for a moment really quickly. We're not gonna spend a lot of time on this, but The Bachelor's essentially, or Bachelorette, is a show where they have one individual who will pick out of usually over 20 different people over a period of 9 weeks, one person to either be engaged with, or at least they're choosing it down to this one person. Obviously, it's an unnatural environment. It's contrived. They make it to spend 20 or 30 hours with somebody out of 20 people. That's just really not realistic. Obviously, it's not a normal way of finding a partner. But at the same time, it's not a bad illustration for how we're approaching love and relationship, and it's certainly entertainment, which is what its value is for. Today's message is really going to be about why didn't Matt James find love and relationship? If you began in the beginning of the season, you saw that he was so engaged in it, and he was being so intentional about trying to find this person. So you're all excited thinking he's gonna find somebody. He really wants to. The last 2 episodes were just unfolding of so much pain and difficulty, but mostly it was an unfolding of a message that I think set Mr. James up to fail. The message that his mom gave him about love and relationship was wounding to him. I'm sure she has been through a lot, so this isn't a judgment of her in any way, shape, or form. She seems like a lovely woman. Let's step back and talk about, they went the whole way through the process. He narrowed it down to 2 women, and what happened was the mom and brother come to meet the last 2 women that he has chosen, that he wants to figure out which of these 2 he should choose as a partner, possibly even propose to. And what happens is she sits down after, I believe it was the second young woman, and basically reminds him that love comes and goes, that love can go. And the episode before that, he dealt with a lot of trauma and pain that had been caused by the abandonment of her husband, his father. I obviously don't know the other side of that, so I can only tell you that's what was represented in the show. And so when she says this, the pain in her heart is so great, his entire countenance changes. The attitude he'd had for all of the weeks going up to that, I'm narrowing it down, I'm gonna find the woman, completely evaporated. And there was this new man who was completely terrified. He looked completely terrified. And if we as a community were to sit with Matt James and say, this is what happened and this is what can help you, it would go something like this. When your mother says to you that love can just disappear, and it sends shockwaves through your life, that is, number 1, a sign that the trauma caused by the abandonment of her ex-husband, your father, didn't ever get healed. And that is so common, and I understand that, and that's not a judgment either, but that's just a sign of that. There's so much pain that you're still carrying, that the idea of trying to take a heart that's already wounded and give it to somebody else is a really dangerous thing to try to do. Secondly, when love is described as something that can just come or go, because that's what happened in that experience of that family, we're conflating love with the choice to love, the choice to commit. And when we do that, we are at its mercy. And there's a reason why fear is the proper reaction. Because if we define love as this thing that binds us to somebody, and we use feelings as our rudder for that, we're gonna be headed for a Titanic-sized disaster. And yeah, that is the reality of when we base our love in feelings. So when I think about what happened to him, it's heartbreaking, because he had these 2 women he loved, I want to use the word love carefully here. He respected and he was attracted to both of these women. But his fear became all the last show and a half was about, was his fear. And that's natural, that's normal, that's part of the healing process. But what if a lot of that fear is based in something that just isn't true? What if he couldn't find love because his definition of love was faulty? What if he could find someone, if he could get the healing work done, what if he could find someone that would agree with him that love is a choice that we make, that love is a decision? When you're Matt James or you're Matt James's mom and you've been abandoned, you've been hurt by someone whose idea of love was whatever they were feeling that day, that week, that month, and abandoning somebody that they supposedly committed to didn't really feel like that was a problem, how much of the way we define love is the reason that that happens? So let's step back from it for one more moment and think, what are some points that we could do to make sure that this idea of love is not the one that we carry? And what are some ways that we can make sure that those hearts who follow us don't end up frozen in fear when it comes time to decide if somebody's the right person for them? So 3 things that you can do to make sure that what happens to the Bachelor this year doesn't happen to you, and you can have a solid foundation for when you're ready to seek out somebody's heart. Number 1, deal with your history. Deal with whatever's happened to you in your family of origin, peer groups, former relationships, maybe in your school past, whatever those kinds of wounds may be. And nobody, hardly anybody's ever going to escape all of these different areas of life without wounding. Make sure that you're ready to move on and maybe consider taking somebody else's trust on. And the only way to do that is if you need outside treatment, if you need therapy, if you need just some really good friends to work through things, if you need closure, if you need to give forgiveness or gain forgiveness, whatever it is that you need to move on healthy and whole, so that when something like a conversation with a parent or a friend comes up, you are not completely triggered, then you'll know that you're moving closer toward being ready to take on somebody's heart and their trust. Recognize if there is fear in you before you start to put your foot in the water of relationships. If you are fearful that love is something that might just take you over and take you under, you're probably not ready for that step. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's kinder to you and to anybody else that you're going to encounter. If there is still fear in you because of what's happened to you in the past or what you think you're capable of, it's time to put on the brakes, slow down, and think about love as something that is out there. It's ready to be engaged in when you're ready and not 1 second before. Number 2, before you're committed, before you're sure of who it is you want to spend your life with, it's important now to reframe the fact that you don't have to project out what you're going to be feeling in 10 years or 5 years or even 30 days from now. Our job is to live in today and make decisions that give us a firm foundation for tomorrow. So if you're going to want healthy relationship in 10 years, how you frame that today in your own way of thinking is everything. So start thinking in terms of, my feelings will be directed by my choices, and there will be little fluctuations here and there, and I'm not going to be afraid of them because my choices are going to be what guides my feelings, not the state of my week, how I feel. Like we talked about before, feelings can fluctuate on a dime because we are chemical beings to a great degree, but we get to override a lot of that with our choices. So don't be afraid of how you're going to feel. Remember that 10 years from now, you're not going to be the same person that you are today. So there's no way to know what you're going to feel. So stepping back from that and not being afraid of it is a crucial step of being ready for healthy love and relationship. And the last one is commit to somebody who also understands that love isn't about the way you feel that day or even that month. It certainly has to be something that you revisit because, like we said, if you're married for decades, you're going to be different people throughout the trajectory. Life happens, struggles happen, great celebrations happen, and we are changed in the journey. When we choose someone to journey through life with and live life with, we need to know they're going to change too. So we need to revisit our goals. These kinds of things change, they come and they go. So don't be afraid of that. Actually embrace that because you don't want to be doing the same things that you did 30 years ago. Stepping back and revisiting where you're headed, what your goals are on a regular basis means that you're going to go maybe different directions and your paths might go a little bit different from time to time, but your destination is the same, and that is that you will enjoy the journey together. You will appreciate and encourage and support each other together. If one of you thinks that love is based on feelings and that it might just disappear one day if you wake up and you've had a bad week, that's going to be where your problem lies. So make sure that you share the same definition of love, which it is a choice that we make with feelings attached, and that we get to inform our feelings by the choices we make. And sometimes that means stepping back, holding our tongue, and really remembering why we chose that person to begin with. So there are 3 really practical and, quite frankly, simple things that we can do to not let fear inform our lives and scare us when it comes to finding the right person. And what a sad thing that we had to watch before our eyes what bad counsel and hard experience can do when somebody's excited to find someone. It's completely washed away by the fact that there's a risk involved. We can mitigate these risks by having an agreement on what love actually is, and we can wait until we find someone who does see it that way. It broke my heart to see somebody who was excited to find someone be completely decimated by the fact that somebody else, maybe 20 years ago, made decisions based on feelings and they called them love, and everybody in that family has suffered from it. And to this day, the definition of love is conflated with feelings, and it is destructive. So I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that if you watch The Bachelor, you resonate with it and you could see the pain. There were some other issues that happened at the end that were really heartbreaking, that had nothing to do with love and relationships. So we'll leave that alone, because that really isn't something that this channel and myself personally can really speak to intelligently. But I can say this: if you want love to endure, you have to have an enduring definition of what it even is. And we are going to do that here. So I hope you will join us as a community. And if you yourself are afraid of what love is, go back and look at some of the videos, and I'll link a few below, that really talk about how much control you have over what love actually is and how little of it is described today in popular culture. And The Bachelor is just a great example of that. As always, I know there's lots of channels you could be spending time on, so thank you for taking the time to be here on mine. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.